Greetings. So, a little short video. I don't do enough of these little videos here, but a short video nonetheless. With the use of a Velvetouch 10-0 liner brush from Princeton Brush Company. I'm not being an advertiser or anything like that. I'm just bring this brush up because it has a specific value to it that I've noticed in regard to creating line work. And so what we're going to do, this has always been an awesome little color that I've used for drawing. For the most part, it reminds me of the ballpoint pens that I grew up with drawing. So we'll do something simple. Little face. We hear something in the background. I have a gas fireplace here. The character here is going to have a lot of texture to the face, almost a bulldog-like face. I grew up watching movies out of the 1970s, and one of the awesome things about the movies from the 1970s was you didn't have anyone who was preened and plucked and perfect. The actors in the movies from the 1970s, they had bad teeth, stained teeth. They had pock marks and blemishes, and they were realistic. Just a little bit here and there. Nothing fabulous, nothing exotic. That's one of the things I've always enjoyed about cheap art supplies. And probably one of the things I'm going to start doing is I have to get back into oil painting. I have been neglecting that, not making enough time for oil painting, but I have to get back into some oil painting. And what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go and get the cheapest package of art supplies I can get and see what I can do with it. Start from the ground floor. Because you never want to get into this idea that the supplies make the art. But you think about it, back in the good old days, prior to mass manufactured art supplies, everything was handcrafted. You either had to make it yourself, or you had to find an artisan or craftsman who was familiar with what you wanted for them to craft it properly. Paints were hand milled. Brushes were handmade. There we go. Stupid phone. So the artist who outrages against industrialization, I think, should have a little bit of gratitude, because quite often much of what they take advantage of and take for granted today never existed without the use of industrialization. Not making that as an excuse for some of the negative aspects of industrialization, but one always has to understand that for every single thing that exists on Earth, there are trade-offs, and you have to be realistic with those trade-offs. You have to accept those trade-offs for what they are. I believe the phrase is, "There's no such thing as a free lunch," and what that basically implies is that everything has a consequence and everything has a trade-off. If you want convenience, you might have to suffer the trade-off of quality. If you want quality, well, you might have to give up a little bit of convenience and speed. That's just how things go. It's like doing this video on the cell phone. I have a bunch of cameras that I could do this video on, but I'm constricted with such little time to do things like this these days that I have to make do with what I have. And there are some shortfalls and pitfalls and all sorts of issues with that. And one makes do with what they have. And that's always been something I've had to live by. It wasn't something by choice, it was something I always had to live by. In some ways, if you work with your limitations, you come up with something a lot better than if you didn't have any limitations at all. Making coffee in the background. One of the things that I like about using the Princeton Velvetouch brush, or pretty much any brush at all, is the fact that steel nibs, like any of these, they actually cut into the paper. It's almost like tattooing the paper. They always leave a solid mark in the paper, a groove. And with using the brush, you can meter how much ink you have, and depending on how you do that, you can actually have a lot more ink loaded up into the brush than you can with a pen. And while being able to meter out the thickness of the line from really thin to really thick, if you notice, this line is really dark. This line is not as dark. They're the same thickness, but they have a lot more density of ink. And you have that ability with the brush a little bit, I think, a little bit better. Then again, it's always how familiar you are with the tool. Give this fellow little ears. He's got that look of, why are you looking at me? Maybe he's asking, why'd you give me this face? There's so many faces you could give me with that ink right there. Why'd you give me this face? So anyway, there. Maybe a little bit more here and there. There. So anyway, a little bit of ink with the Princeton Velvetouch 10-0 liner brush. Have a good day.